Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we're going to check out the other basic figure for the Jurassic World Dominion line. Well, there's actually another one that's new, but it's not a new sculpt, it's the Pteranodon, which I'll get to eventually, but this is the other new sculpt that we have out that, is a brand new species entering the Jurassic World Dominion line. This is the Pyro Raptor, and this is a really cool figure to take a look at because up until this point, I don't think I have any other Pyro Raptors from Dominion, so this is really exciting to officially have an opportunity to take a look at one. But you can see as far as what we have package-wise, you've got like a little window there, sneak peek of the Pyro Raptor. Again, Rexy there on the front, as well as the Jurassic World Dominion logo. And then here on the side, you have another sneak peek of the Pyro Raptor itself. And then here on the back, even though it's all sideways, you have a look at the other figures. Again, there's the new Pteranodon, which doesn't look like it's anything amazing, but I will definitely get a hold of that one. I actually think I have it pre-ordered on Big Bad Toy Store. I'm not super concerned with getting a hold of it early like I was with these guys, because this one, again, is just a repeat of the previous Pteranodon with new paint. But we, again, have Velociraptor Blue for the 4 millionth time. We also have the Atrociraptor and now the Pyroraptor. And then over here, you can kind of see like a little image there of a helicopter as well as part of Rexy. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, and check it out. And here is our Pyroraptor. And I will say it's pretty nice, but it's not quite as nice as the Atrociraptor. One thing, though, that I instantly notice, and it's something that I've actually noticed on some other upcoming Mattel Pyroraptors, is on the Dominion version, we have some beautiful feathers out here on the arm, almost wing-like feathers, but we don't really have that here. We do have some feathers, like there's definitely some present, but they're not quite as large as what we see on the actual Pyroraptor in Dominion. So I do notice that straight away as a difference between the figure and the actual dinosaur we see in the film. I will, though, say that there's some coloration to this one that is a little better than your average basic figure, because we actually have like the black here in the face, but we also have the coloration change here toward the back. So it looks like the whole figure as a whole is kind of painted and not something that you always see on, basic figures. And we also have a different tone of red up here. Unfortunately, as always, no nail paint. And one thing I really can see straight away I don't like is the fact that, often you get the basic figures without painted teeth, but this looks a little bit worse than normal because the black kind of runs down over the teeth and just doesn't look that great. I really would have preferred the painted teeth on this one. I'm actually half tempted to do it myself, although I usually try to keep my figures original, and if I get an extra, I'll repaint it, but it's just not, the most appealing look for a Pyroraptor is having black teeth. But as a whole, again, it still looks really nice, and I'm super excited to take a closer look at this being another feathered dinosaur, so let's jump straight to a closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Pyroraptor, you can see that the feather detail does look pretty nice through the course of the figure. We do have some scaly areas up here in the face, as you don't have an entirely feathered face. But again, you can see like the detail there around the eye looks really nice. And I like how the color kind of switches back and forth, as we can see like the reddish tones there around the eye. But then you have the black there kind of bordering the eye lid area. And then out here, you can see a little hint of that red before transitioning back to that kind of dark gray or black in the palette. You can see the nostrils sculpted out really nicely right there. The teeth also look pretty good, a little bit too big and bulky, but they still look pretty good for the most part. You have some pretty nice feather detail here running along the lower jaw. I like how we have kind of like finer feathers, but as we reach back here, we get much larger feathers before transitioning again to the body, which is completely covered with feathers. I will say, though, that the figure kind of has like a little bit of a glossy look to it, and the feather detail, I would say, isn't quite as vibrant as what I saw on the Therizinosaurus that they've recently released. Like, the feather detail was fantastic on that, whereas if you look up here on the top of the head, like some of the feather detail is just a little bit muted, I think, compared to, like the Therizinosaurus. But you can see some really nice feathers up here on the top of the head, kind of like a crest of feathers sticking off of the back of the head. And they're also an alternate tone of red compared to the rest of the body, a little bit of a darker red, but those feathers look really, really nice. No glossy look to those, but the majority of the body down here definitely has a little bit of a shiny look. As you move down, though, in through the neck, you can kind of see like a little bit of tensing, but you can also see quite a bit of difference within the feathers there. As you move down into the body a little bit further, you could kind of pick up on the shoulder blade right there. Again, you could see like really fine feathers, then you see some bigger feathers, then some fine feathers. So there's a lot of difference when it comes to the feathers of the Pyroraptor. A very interesting look for the dinosaur. As you move down here into the arm, you can see some areas of skin texture, as we have a nice little area there of the arm that shows off some nice muscle definition, but you could still kind of see a few feathers poking out of the arm right there before transitioning to some really nice feathers here running along the bottom of the arm. But again, on the Pyroraptor that we've seen in Jurassic World Dominion, the feathers are much larger on the arm than what we see here on the figure. As you lead out here into the hands, though, you can see some nice scoots down the fingers, and you have some beautiful claws. I absolutely love this area of the figure. I love how the hands are kind of held into the body in a nice natural way. I really, really like that. And both hands and both arms kind of look like they're exactly the same kind of held into the body. And again, what I would say is a pretty nice and natural way for the figure. If we move the leg back a little bit there and move the arms back forward, you can see some more skin texture here on the underside. Again, before transitioning to some feathers running along the center of the stomach. But you can see as we move up here again that we have that big kind of area of feathering running up here to the top. You can see the hip bone again with some more fine feathers. And again, some more of those larger feathers kind of running along the spinal column of the Pyroraptor. You also have some feathers kind of hanging here off of the back of the thigh, but yet again you have some more like skin textures. We have quite a bit of different looking scales, almost like some osteoderms right here in this area as well. You can see a nice pretty smooth transition from that red to the black, kind of like an abrupt transition, but at the same time the transition is kind of smooth as well. As you lead down into the leg a little further, you can see the kneecap right there. You can also see the calf muscle, and then leading down into the foot. Pretty nice looking foot sculpt. You do have, of course, the sickle claw, nice scoots down the toes, but the black areas of the feet and everything still have that kind of glossy look to it, which it's not overly glossy. It definitely isn't as glossy as you see on some Mattel figures, like, for instance, like the Alioramus that was the original Alioramus, where it had that really glossy coloration on the face. You don't really see it quite that glossy, but there's just like the shine kind of, I think, shines away some of the detail on the figure. But then again, as we move back up here, you start to see those feathers again picking up here in the thigh and then leading off of the thigh before transitioning back out here onto the tail. And we have kind of a really cool appearance here to the black and then the red kind of battling back and forth right here before we transition entirely to a black tail. And the tail does have some really, really nice looking feather detail. I think this is probably the area that has the nicest feather detail on the entire figure from what I can see. You can see again the area of skin texture here running along the tail, but the feathers also hanging off of the tail here on the underside, but the entire upper side is completely coated in feathers, quite a bit of different, again, varying sizes of feathers. Really, really nice looking. Of course, the opposing side really is not going to look much different over here compared to what we saw on the initial side. Again, you can see, though, that the eye paint is really nice. We have a very nicely painted eye with a black pupil and very precise, which is nice to see. And again, as we move through, the detailing pretty much looks the same throughout, except for we have an alternate positioning for the leg. The leg over here is a little bit further forward than the opposing leg. It almost kind of gives me the feeling like the Pyroraptor is hunting. Like it almost looks like it's creeping in and maybe is about to lunge at something. That's sort of the way that I look at this. Or maybe it's running because it kind of has its head forward, kind of with a streamlined type of a look as it's really trying to pick up some speed. But at the same time, with the kind of almost crouching position, the positioning of the head, and the way the arms are just held, I really feel like it looks like it's kind of just sneaking up on something. But I really do like the colors of this one. As far as being a basic figure, like there's some decent paint application to it. It really just needed painted nails, which on the feet, I guess you can kind of think it does because it has the darker coloration for the feet. But the claws here on the hands definitely are unpainted, and the fact that the teeth are a black color kind of drives me crazy a little bit. I really wish they would have been white, but overall it definitely is a really nice looking Pyroraptor. Not exactly screen accurate, but pretty darn nice nonetheless. As far as articulation goes, again, being a basic figure, you get basic articulation. So there's no jaw, no neck articulation, nothing like that. You do have arm articulation, of course, both arms. You also have leg articulation, both legs. And then you actually do have ankle articulation, but that's not really anything amazing. And then you have articulation in the tail, up, down, left, right. All of that kind of usual standard articulation. As far as a size goes, and it is actually a pretty darn good size, especially for a Pyroraptor, you are looking at lengthwise around 14 inches or about the 35.5 centimeter area. And then for a height, the highest point might be this feather right here. You're looking at about 5 inches or around the 12.5 centimeter range. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line. From this angle, it almost looks like the Attack Pack Colovosaurus's head is somehow lost in the Pyroraptor's rectum, but regardless, again, maybe I'll move him back a little bit. There we go. You can get a pretty good idea of the fact that the Pyroraptor here, of course, being a basic figure, does sport a pretty darn good size as the basic figures usually do. They usually are quite large, and again, especially like in comparison to Mr. Papo Rex, you can definitely see that there is a pretty good size overall for this figure. And then for another size comparison, we have the Extreme Damage Velociraptor here next to the Pyroraptor, again showing off the size, because the Raptors from Mattel, I feel like, are a fairly common figure overall. We've had so many opportunities to get Raptors. If you are a Mattel collector, by now you probably own at least one, so I figured that one would be a pretty good stand-in for a comparison. And then as far as size comparisons go, here is the Pyroraptor and Atrociraptor from Mattel for the Jurassic World Dominion line, the 12-inch basic figures, and again giving you a good idea of the fact that they both are pretty much the same size, a very similar size. I think maybe the Atrociraptor might be a little bit longer, potentially, but overall, as far as like the body mass and everything goes, they're a pretty darn similar size. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dominion Pyroraptor, the 12-inch basic version, is a really nice figure, but it doesn't come without at least a few downsides, like the incredibly oversized feet and the fact that the arms don't quite have the feathers that we see on the Dominion version. But, I mean, and of course the teeth, actually. The teeth, I cannot pass that up. The teeth being painted black are definitely a downside, but outside of those areas, I feel like the figure overall is actually a pretty darn nice looking version of the Jurassic World style Pyroraptor. The sculpt is very nice, and even though some of the feather detail seems a little muted, again, there's quite a bit of difference when it comes to the varying sizes of feathers, and we have some beautiful scale detail in areas where there should be scale detail. And as a whole, again, the figure looks good paint-wise too, which isn't something you can always say when it comes to the basic line, because this one kind of makes it look like it has paint out onto the tail, whereas so many other basic figures usually do not, because we start the face there with the black, but then we turn to a red, and then we end in black, so it kind of looks like there's paint through the whole body. Of course, it would have been better if there were painted nails in the figure, but as a whole, again, I'm pretty happy with the paint job on this one. Probably one of the nicer paint jobs on a basic figure. Even though there's not really that much to it, it still looks really good, and all of the paintwork is really precise, like the eye paint specifically looks really good. And again, I like the fact that there's quite a few different tones of colors. We have a different coloration of red for the feathers on the top of the head. The majority of the body sports a different tone of red than those feathers on the top of the head, and we also have the black. So, you know, 3 different tones of color on a basic figure isn't too bad. And then, of course, you have eye paint, which is another tone of color. But as a whole, it's a pretty cool version of the Pyroraptor. Not amazing, but definitely really quite nice. So if you are interested in this, I purchased mine off of Mercari, unfortunately, paying a little bit too much, and now the pre-order has actually shown up on Big Bad Toy Store. So I will link you guys to Big Bad Toy Store, where you can purchase this for retail. It is not shipping, I don't believe, quite yet. It should be at some point soon, so rather than spending extra money to buy it off of someone online, because I was really worried initially about getting a hold of this, you know, it's probably easier to just purchase it on Big Bad Toy Store and just wait for it to ship, because you can at least get it for the $10 price tag. One way or another, again, make sure you check the link in the description. Go buy this really cool Pyro Raptor, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.